We usually associate the word surrender with the white flag, a signal that the battle is over and the exhausted side is giving up. But tonight, surrender looked like a deliberate walk into the shadows of the Kidron Valley. The olive trees in Gethsemane were thousands of years old, their gnarled, twisted trunks creating a dense, claustrophobic canopy beneath the full moon. This location had a specific function. Gethsemane literally means the oil press. It was a place where olives were placed into basins like this one and crushed under the weight of a massive stone to extract their oil. Jesus began the night by creating a series of barriers. He left 8 disciples at the edge of the grove, taking only his inner circle deeper into the trees, before finally pulling away to face the darkness in total isolation. The historical records indicate that a violent physical shudder took hold of him before he even reached his place of prayer. He was entering a state of deep distress, reaching a biological breaking point hours before the first Roman nail was ever produced. In this context, surrender is an active, agonizing choice to remain present as the weight of the world began to exert a crushing force on mind and body. This medical telemetry visualizes a body pushed to its absolute biological limits. As Jesus fell face first into the dirt, his heart rate would have entered a dangerous zone, while his system was flooded with levels of cortisol and adrenaline typically seen in extreme trauma. He identified the source of this trauma as the cup. In theological terms, this represents a toxic internalization of every act of human cruelty, every murder, lie, and betrayal from the beginning of time. His physical system was glitching because it was attempting to process a psychological weight that exceeds human capacity. As the pressure reached its peak, he began to sweat drops of blood. While this sounds like a religious metaphor, it is actually a clinical reality known as hematidrosis. This cross-section shows the mechanism of that shock. When the body reaches a state of maximum psychological stress, the capillaries surrounding the sweat glands can rupture. The blood then leaks into the glands and is pushed out through the pores as a dark crimson sweat. The agony in the garden was not a symbolic struggle, it was a documented medical shock event. He was sustaining the physical toll of the cross before he ever left the grove. A few yards away, the disciples were slumped against the ancient roots. Their bodies followed the natural human instinct to shut down and seek the relief of sleep when the emotional atmosphere becomes too heavy to bear. While Jesus was gasping for air and pressing his face into the damp earth, the only sounds in the garden were the rhythmic breathing of his friends and the indifferent rustle of the olive leaves. This is the absolute peak of isolation. He was the only person awake to the reality of impending violence, standing as a solitary figure against a world that had gone to sleep. The human body is designed to avoid pain through unconsciousness or flight. Divine surrender, however, required the willpower to stay awake and conscious inside a biological nightmare. During his third and final prayer, the visible symptoms of panic suddenly subside. The uncontrollable tremors in his hands stop, and his breathing becomes steady, despite the blood still drying on his forehead. He reached a point of total alignment with his mission, articulating the choice with the phrase, "Not my will, but yours." This was the moment the biological instinct for survival was fully overridden by the will. This creates a direct symmetry with the first garden mentioned in ancient texts. Where the first man in Eden chose his own will and fell, Jesus stayed in the dirt of Gethsemane until his own will was fully surrendered. Because the internal battle was won here among the olive trees, the upcoming execution on the cross was no longer a defeat. It was simply the physical fulfillment of a victory that had already been secured in the mud. When the line of flickering torches finally appeared in the valley, Jesus didn't run. He stood at the front of the grove and met his betrayer with a quiet, devastating pity, no longer a victim of his own biological terror. Even as the guards moved in, he reached out to heal the ear of a man sent to arrest him. It was a final demonstration of power, proving that he was not being captured, but was actively offering himself up. Here, love is stripped of its emotional sentiment and revealed as a brutal, active choice. It is the decision to protect and heal others while your own body is literally breaking under the weight of their shadows. By exhausting this total isolation and finding the strength to cry out, "Abba, Father," in a silent garden, he established a prototype for human endurance. He walked into the center of the void so that the next person facing a midnight of the soul would find his footsteps already there, turning a place of crushing into a place of presence.